Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Cutting Edge Figure Skating Podcast. My name is Kim Dunaway, and in this episode, I will be recapping my favorite routines from the 23-24 season in ice dance. So, like pairs, I have selected 12 programs that I feel like represent the best that we had to offer this year in terms of choreography, musicality, originality, and performance. So I'm not going to do this in any of the other disciplines, but last season when I did my season's best list for ice dance, I included a couple of junior teams, which, no surprise, was the Checks and Lemon Kuan, who were of such fantastic quality in juniors. I put them in my season's best list combined with the seniors. This season, I'm going to keep the seniors completely separate. I don't cover juniors, but I do keep up with, a fair amount of it. So I decided just to recognize a couple of junior programs that I thought were really entertaining or really fantastic. So the best junior rhythm dance that I selected this season was from the American team of Nisset and Markoloff, and I chose their rhythm dance to Scorpions and Joan Jett because I just think it's really entertaining. I think their free dance was also really strong this year, but I just feel like their rhythm dance specifically really stood out from a lot of the other junior teams this season. I think they have great patterns in this program. I really like their third set of twizzles. I think their position there is really cool. Once I Hate Myself for Loving You, the second selection of music to Joan Jett picks up, the whole program really picks up. I love the Scorpions piece too. I really love the contrast of the two pieces of music. I just think it really works. I think their midline step is awesome. They do like these knee slides. They go on their belly at some point. I think it's far more effective than like the rolling on the ground that Gillis and Poirier do in their rhythm dance. It's just really entertaining. And so really enjoyed this, and I wanted to give it a little bit of recognition in my season's best list. And for my best junior free dance, I selected the Ukrainian team of Pinchuk and Pogorilov and their Madonna free dance. They use Vogue in the beginning and to end the program, and then in the middle they use Frozen, which I think is a really effective piece. This routine is definitely not a masterclass in technique, but it is very entertaining. And I thought it also really improved throughout the season. Like the first couple of Grand Prix that they were in, it was kind of junior Grand Prix. It was kind of, you could see the potential that was there, but there were definitely some hiccups and some of the transitions, some of the entrances and exits out of their lifts, for instance. Thought it was a lot improved by Junior Grand Prix final, and I thought their best performance of it was at Europeans. I think their character step is really fun. I love his costume with one arm completely out. I love the bass that they add to the Frozen part. I feel like it really punctuates their movements with the music. And so, again, I really enjoyed this program and wanted to give it some recognition as well. I also wanted to throw out some honorable mentions here before we get into the top 12. And that goes out to Hawaii and Baker for one. They obviously didn't compete this season. And while they're still on the envelope for U.S. figure skating in this next coming season, a bit surprisingly. I think most of us are kind of expecting that they've kind of moved on. It looks like John Luke is doing some choreographing. He's been touring around with Nathan Chin, doing some different seminars. Caitlin was the DJ at Worlds, and so they're very much kind of up in the air if they're going to continue skating, definitely competitively. But they did have programs prepared for this year before John Luke's concussion that forced them to withdraw from the Grand Prix and then to reevaluate their decision to go to nationals, which they ultimately withdrew from as well. So On Ice Perspectives filmed their rhythm dance and their free dance and put it out, and both of the programs were just absolutely fantastic. It's just such a bummer that we didn't get to see them compete them this season, and so I wanted to give them some recognition. Obviously I can't put it into the list because they didn't compete it, but really fantastic programs. I also wanted to throw a honorable mention to Tanaka and Yoshida. of Japan who had this really fun Super Mario Brothers rhythm dance. I just thought it was so unique and very 80s at the same time. And so while they don't make the ultimate list, I just wanted to give them a shout out because I just thought it was such a fun creative routine and creative pieces of music where they actually added in like real sounds from the game. All right. So without further ado, let's get into my countdown of my top routines and ice dance this season. So, number 12, I selected Lyla Fear and Lewis Gibson, and this is their free dance to Rocky. So, I think there's probably no more polarizing program than this program for figure skating fans this season. Like many, when I first saw it at the very beginning of the year before they even debuted it in a challenger, when they just debuted it domestically, had lots of question marks in my brain. It just seemed so out of the box. But by the time the Grand Prix rolled around, I started to really come around to it. And what I've said on the podcast and what I still very strongly feel is that the best routine for you as a team is a routine that it feels like only you can do, that we can't put other teams into that same packaging, that same music, and they be able to pull it off. And this routine undoubtedly feels very unique to Lyla and Lewis. We all wanted something different from them. Now, this routine is not as highly rated as their Lady Gaga routine was on my countdown last season. We all love that style for them, but they really had to come into the season and do something very different. And so we've not seen a Rocky program that I can recall before. And so they're pioneers in that sense of using some really fresh pieces of music and coming in with that theme. I mean, somebody has probably used Eye of the Tiger before, but just the entire package altogether just really works. I feel like the second half of the program, when the regular version of Eye and the Tiger kicks in with the curve lift, rotational lift combo, and then goes into their like 30-second character step, the program really, really shines. The crowd really gets behind it. And they go back to the Rocky theme at the end with the sliding movement. They end with one of their signature stationary lifts, which they are, really fantastic at. So I think it's one of the top programs of the season, unquestionably. So it just made it into my list at number 12. My number 11 free dance is one that a lot of people may not be as familiar with. This comes from the Italian team of Manny and Rothberger, and this is their free dance to Interstellar. And first of all, Interstellar music is just really fantastic, and I'm a sucker for the music. I don't love the movie, but the soundtrack is really, really strong. I don't necessarily need the voiceovers at the beginning, but everything else is just really cool. I think they do a really good job of just drawing you in. I think the program has a really nice build to it. They started off with a really cool stationary lift right at the beginning. I love the sliding movement that they do when she's almost in the splits. The last three lifts in the program are all just really strong. And I feel like this is one of those programs that you don't see featured in the last couple of groups or at Grand Prix, and it can definitely be something that you may have not seen. If you haven't, I definitely encourage you to check it out. On Ice Perspectives has a video of this that they did at like a exhibition, some type of a show setting. So it's like with dark, dim lights, but it's like a really incredible way to see the program, because otherwise you have to go back and either look at Europeans and use some kind of a VPN, or you might can get some video of it at Lombardia. But I really think it shines really well with the dim lights that On Ice Perspectives did. And it's just a really cool program. And so it had to make my list, and it is in at number 11. So on to the top 10. My number 10 program is Piper Gillis and Paul Poirier of Canada, and this is their free dance to Wuthering Heights. So this was a program that when it debuted, And even all the way through maybe like Grand Prix final, I was like, what is this program about? I like went and read like a short synopsis of Wuthering Heights to get a little bit of an idea of what the story was. So, you know, not to give it away if you ever want to read the book or watch the movie, but basically she's a ghost. So that sort of explains like some of the haunting music that you get throughout the program. What I really love about this program, in addition to some of the choreography and some of the lifts, is that this is not music that we've heard before. It's different. And again, we have so many pieces of music, whether it's To Build a Home and Rain in My Black Eyes. And we just hear so many of the same pieces of music all the time. And then sometimes we hear music that sounds very similar to music that we hear all the time. And so when you have somebody that pulls a piece of music that we're not familiar with, it stands out on its own just because of that. And so everybody else that chooses to use this piece of music in the future, they're going to get compared to this program. So I really love that they're both committed to their characters. I really criticized their lifts last season for being too simple. Now, it's a personal preference. Like some people preferred what Papadakis and Cizeron were doing. They did like more simplified lifts and tried to do them very well. I personally preferred the more complicated lifts of the Virtue and Moyer in the Davis and White era. And so I didn't love Piper and Paul's lifts last season. I thought they were the weakest part of what they were doing. They really upped their game in that department this year. I think their lifts are really stunning. I love the straight line lift that they do. The entrance into it is very difficult. I like that they do their character set fairly early in their program. A lot of teams seem to save it for the end, and it almost feels like a throwaway a bit. Here, it feels a little bit more purposeful that way. They have a very nice curve lift later in the program, and he's in a really great position that really showcases both of them. A lot of times the lifts, you're just focused on the lady, but I feel like in that lift, you're also really focused on Paul. So they were strong in this all season. Obviously, at Worlds, they created a real moment with it. And so I enjoyed it. I thought it was, one of the top 10 programs this season, and it comes in at number 10. The number 9 program was Louisia de Mauget and Theo Le Mercier from France. And this is their free dance to Claire de Lune in Waves. This is a program that I felt like really got better as the season went on. They have this really subtle first half when they're using the Claire de Lune music, but it's the second half of the program that it just really sells it. The stationary lift, rotational lift combo that they do is really, really just top. Maybe only second to like Turula and Louise or Lyla and Lewis, but very, very strong. I love how the rotational part of it just seems to go on forever and she changes position. And I love that they go right into their character step right after that. And it's actually a really cool character step. I think it's one of the better character steps that we've seen this season. I love the entry into their straight line lift. It's right on the music. And when the program ends, you're almost disappointed that it ends. You feel like it could go on longer because it just doesn't really feel like it was 4 minutes. You feel like it could have gone on for 6 minutes. And so this program really helped to move them up in the standings a lot this year, and it definitely left an impression on me. The number 8 routine, I have Gard and Fabre of Italy, so 2 Italian pairs making the season's best list. And so this was their free dance to the music from The Theory of Everything. This is a program that for me, when it debuted, it stood out immediately. Some programs like the one I just mentioned have to kind of grow on me over the course of the season, but this one right out the gate was really strong. It's probably my favorite program of theirs ever. They have been a team that for me has been either very boring, like the program they did the season before the season of the Olympics, or it's kind of weird like the program that they had last year. This one I feel like was just really beautiful from beginning to end. It flowed really well, but they create some really nice moments in this free dance. The entry into that curve lift is just wild. It almost mimics that entry into a lift that Minerva Hossi and Nikita Volanden do. Just really cool. I love the rotational lift that's right after it. I feel like a lot of the combo lifts that we see, there's one lift that's good. It's either the rotational lift that's cool, or it's the curve or the straight line lift going into it that's cool. But one of the two is cool, but both of them aren't necessarily. And I feel like with Gard and Fabre, both of theirs are cool. And even though I might like Loisi and Theo's combination lift, or Turula and Versailles combination lift a little bit better, I feels like theirs looks the most difficult, but they don't make it look difficult. They make it look easy. They have one of my favorite dance spins. I really love the first when she's on his leg. And I love the last position when she's like in a layback position. I think the 1 foot sequence at the end is very effective. That last stationary lift they do is just a wow moment. You're just like, how did they get into that? How did they make it look so easy? There's video when they did this at Shanghai Trophy earlier this season, and they have this overhead camera, and you can really see the ice coverage that they get in that circular step. So beautiful program. Actually surprised that it's not higher on my list. It just, when I went back and rewatched a lot of programs when I compiled this list, some programs passed it overall, but still super strong program from them. And like I said, probably the favorite program that I have had from them in their career. Number 7, I have Holly Harris and Jason Chan of Australia, and this is their free dance to Ocean's Lullaby. And I think this program was just underscored and underappreciated really all season. I saw it at a challenger first, and I thought it was just really stunning. And I still think it is. They're another one that On Ice Perspectives filmed them, and really, really beautiful camera work where you could really see the performance quality and the passion come out in that performance that they do for them, versus, not that they didn't perform it very well in competition, which they did, just wasn't always scored particularly great. But love the opening stationary lift that they do here. I think it's incredible. I think they do some really nice positions in their dance spin. I think the choreography and the costumes just really match the music. And I also think they have a really great ending pose. So it's just another one that just from beginning to end just really is compelling, really draws you in. I love the theme, and I love their commitment to it as well. All right. My number 6 routine is Carrera and Marinko, and this is their rhythm dance to music selections from Stevie Nicks. So Carrera and Marinko are one of the teams that it was a bit of a struggle to pick the rhythm dance versus the free dance, because they're a team that had 2 really, really strong programs this season. Ultimately, I chose the rhythm dance because if I'm going to go back and watch a program from theirs this season, it's probably going to be the rhythm dance. I feel like this program really highlights Christina so well, and it really shows how much she's improved. I love the twizzles on the music change. I think they do a really good job maintaining their speed in the twizzles. For some teams, their program almost seems to come to a stop when they do their twizzles, but not them. It just they continue to maintain that speed throughout. I feel like the curve lift that they do here really works well for them. They did the same curve lift last year, and this is the famous lift that Davis and White did in their Scheherazade free skate. And I feel like last year when they did it in their summertime free skate, it was a bit of a struggle. And maybe part of it is just that they have another year of doing it. But I just kind of feel like here in the music, it just works a little bit better, and the program doesn't seem to stop. I'm not holding my breath. Everything just kind of really flows well with it. I feel like they maintain their performance throughout this Silver Samba pattern. And I think part of the reason that this routine stands out is we had a lot of really poppy rhythm dances. So, notice pretty much everything that I have on my list has been free dances. This is the first rhythm dance that's been in my top 12. And there's only one other one. Now, this same thing happened last season. Last season, I only had one rhythm dance in my top 10, which it was actually ended up being number 1. But in general, I have felt like the rhythm dances the last couple of seasons have left a little bit to be desired. And so really with this season, I just feel like we saw, a lot of the sort of the same selections of music, hold out for a hero and, just felt very samey a lot of times. And here with them choosing Stevie Nicks, if anybody else was skating the Stevie Nicks, I don't remember. It's kind of like chick rock. I mean, is that what Stevie Nicks' style is? It's just different than what everybody else is doing. And that also really helped them stand out. They did have a costume change on this from earlier in the season. Everybody kind of felt like the previous costumes sort of fit the Stevie Nicks vibe better. But from my understanding, Christina was told by a judge that she needed something that was a little bit more form-fitting to show off her lines. And if you sort of look at the costume that she picked later, that skating dress definitely allows to show off her lines more so than the fringe did, which is a little bit baggier look. So I can definitely understand now that I have context of why they changed the costume there, that worked better for them. And frankly, when they got to Worlds, they scored a lot better. Did that have anything to do with the costume change? I don't know. But it was a really, really entertaining program. And I think everybody has, if they're going to move up in the standings, they have that routine that sort of helps to propel them there. And really, for Carrera and Marinko, is really both routines. But I feel like when you have a really strong rhythm dance, it puts you in a really good position for your free dance to be rewarded well, too. All right, so on to the top 5. Number 5 is Holm and Kuan of Korea, and this was their free dance to Umbrellas of Cherbourg, which I thoroughly enjoyed all season. This is another routine that didn't have to grow on me, just pretty much out of the gates. It was really strong. The music is fantastic. They have a straight line lift that's similar to Luisio and Theo to open their program. I love the curve lift when she's in that full split. I love their hydroblading movement. What really stands out for them in this program is the connection that they have between each other and also the emotion that they're bringing to the program, especially in the second half. It's just so strong, and it's really what makes this program. The last lift where they're spinning, their legs are intertwined. She puts her hands like in his hair. There's just lots of emotion that comes out, and it just kind of really seals in the entire program. And this program got lots of standing ovations just really all season. It was a fantastic vehicle for them, and I really, really enjoyed it. All right, my number 4 program is the only other rhythm dance that is on here, and that was Emily Zingas and Vadim Kolesnik, and this was their selections from Michael Jackson. And this was a routine that was sort of like the opposite of Grenard and Fabre. Grenard and Fabre I thought would be a little bit higher on the list. This routine I expected to be a little bit lower on my list. But it's just so good. It's so good. And for the most part, they performed it well pretty much all season. It was their free dance that they oftentimes would have some mistakes in, and that would be a little bit disappointing. But I just thought this rhythm dance, just from the get-go, right at that first challenger, I think it was Finlandia, that they were in, put themselves in a medal position from their rhythm dance. I mean, they were scoring, close to mid-70s, pretty much on it all year. What stands out to me in this program is their energy and their sharpness. And they're just like that from beginning to end. I mean, even during the slower music, they keep the intensity up the entire time. I love that, I love the little booty shaking that they do sort of at the beginning. They both got really nice rhythm, great speed throughout the program. I love the stationary lift that they do at the music change to Liberian Girl. I think it's really effective. They are just flying through the silver samba pattern, a ton of confidence that they're bringing to the table, and just lots of fire at the end with the karate kicks. They probably have one of my favorite midline steps that we have in the rhythm dance. And so they're a team that I said all season is just like right on the cusp. But this program was just a real showstopper, and it's too bad maybe they didn't have a little bit better free dance to go with it. But I think they got a lot of really great experience this year. And I think that this particular program helped to put them on the map in the eyes of some of the judges, just based on the difficulty that they had in this program and the execution, high level of execution in which they performed it. All right, on to my top three. And all of my top three are all returning from last season. So, number three, I chose Julia Turkula and Matthias Lewis from Finland. And this was their free dance to Mass from Foria and also Loss from Foria. And they were very high on my list last year as well. They're a really stunning team. And they probably have the best combo lift, stationary and rotational lift of anybody. They write it at the beginning and just kind of set that tone already. They have all these shapes that they make with their arms. It starts right at the beginning of the program. And what I love is that they maintain it throughout the entire program. It's not like a throwaway. She does it in lifts. They do it in between moves. It's really done well throughout the program. And it helps them really maintain the theme the whole time. Once the lyrics sort of kick in, there's like this palpable increase in intensity, but it's like a quiet intensity that they really specialize in. I think the straight line lift they do here is just killer. Again, she's got the arm movements in it, great entry. I love the drama that they have that comes out of their 1 foot turn sequence. I think their character step is really powerful. There's even a lift kind of in there in the character step. And then they have this fantastic lift into a spin, kind of like Lemon Kuan, not quite the same, but sort of in that same similar vein, just like right at the end. And love this program. This is a program that I knew was going to be on the list. Didn't necessarily know that it was going to be this high, but when you go and you watch all these programs, this one is one that just really stands out. And so another fantastic, well done free dance piece from these two. All right, my number 2 program for the second year in a row, it is Marjorie Lajoie and Zach Lagat of Canada. They were number 2 on my season's best list last year also with their last year's free dance. And like this year, like last year, they had 2 really strong pieces of music. I mean, their Cha-Cha Slide last year was also really good. This season, their Thriller was really good. And at times during the season, I'm like, it's the rhythm dance that's going to be on my season's best list. No, it's going to be the free dance. No, so I kind of went back and forth, and really Worlds is kind of what sealed the deal for me. This free dance is just so stunning. And it just kind of even complete with the dress, right? That looks like a rose. And I thought it was going to be really hard for them to top that White Crow piece that they did last year, but they somehow managed to do it. Their 1 foot Turk sequence, I think, is gorgeous. I think it's the best that we have this season since Wyatt and Baker are not competing. And they did have the highest 1 foot step score of the entire season for the one that they did at Worlds. I love the running edges that they have sort of coming out into that sequence. I love the positions that they do in their choreographic spinning move. I mean, they have some really great rotational lift and spins in general. Obviously are very good spinners. They have really fast twizzles, and they somehow still work with the beautiful piano music that they're using here, just like their twizzles work really well in their rhythm dance to Thriller. The dance spin, like Marjorie at one point like lowers her head to Zach's head, and it's so subtle, but it's so beautiful. And to me, like that's the difference between these programs that are like at the top versus these other programs that are still great, but a little bit further. It's these little subtle moments in the program that really just sort of set it apart, draw you in. It's another one that's just very compelling. I think Marjorie has some really nice spread eagle positions in here. I love the diagonal step at the end. It really helps the program build. The 2 lifts at the end are just really gorgeous. The rotational lift and then the choreographic one, which I think they've been doing for many years. It's just a really fantastic program. So just bravo for them for turning in yet another really stunning free dance. and they end up with a silver medal for the second year in a row. So that leaves one program. And my number one program this year is our other Finnish team, and that is Orihara and Pyrenin. And this is their free dance to Chicago. Another team had a really strong rhythm dance, but there was absolutely no doubt that this program was going to be on my list. And frankly, at the end of the season, not a single team could beat it. I really enjoyed their free dance that they did last year. It was like the Sirens piece. And again, I kind of was like, how are they going to top that? And they went in a completely different direction, which I loved. And I feel like I learned so much more about this team in this program this year that I wasn't aware of them, that I wasn't aware that they had when I saw them last year. And I was really impressed. It's like they have all of this personality and character just oozing into this program. And it is just so fantastic. It's a really good character piece. Just wowza opening stationary lift. The choreographic spinning movement where she's in a Billman position is incredible. I mean, they're in character and performing throughout the twizzles, the great combo lift. They're just like really using the music. They have great arm positions. Even in the dance spin, they do a great job of both performing to the audience and also connecting with each other. I love the arm accents that they do to the music. And I love the middle section of Roxy Hart where they kind of look more like a traditional ice dance routine. And it just feels more traditional ballroom. I think their character step is just perfection. Like they should have gotten like all +5s on it. How do they not get better scores? I mean, at times they were very well scored on it, but it's just the best character step. The only one that maybe you could say would be better would be Lyla and Lewis's. But in terms of like just the whole point of a character step is to be in character with whatever the theme, whatever character they are. Like it's supposed to, you take that character piece out and you should be able to look at it and go, yes, that's a Chicago program. And I think most teams, their character step, you could insert it in any number of programs and you'd be like, it wouldn't matter. Like when they're in character, like you know that it's a musical theater piece. It just fits it so well. There is not a single moment that they are not performing and giving everything. They hit every single beat of the music. And this program has just, to me, it was just unmatched by anybody else this season in terms of performance and choreography. Just really, really, again, bravo to the team that put this together. So this is another Maurizio Margalio team, and two of their teams were in my top 3 in terms of their choreography for their free dances this season. So just really super strong. All right, so that completes my top 12 list. I always like to sort of rank the teams at the end of the season as well and just sort of wrap up the season as a whole. So the number 1 team has to be Madison Chalk and Evan Bates because they were undefeated this season. They won their second World Championship. They won their first Grand Prix final after like multiple near misses and second place finishes. For the second year in a row, neither of their programs made my top 10 list. Not because I didn't think they had, I think they had very good programs really both seasons, at least last season. By the time we got to Worlds, they were both very good. And I feel like this year they were good right out of the bat. I just feel like in terms of originality and performance, they weren't in the top, but I still feel like unquestionably, I mean, they were undefeated this season. Of course, they are number 1. Now, with number 2 and 3, Gillis and Poirier lost to Guinard and Fabre at Grand Prix final. Guinard and Fabre lost to Gillis and Poirier at Worlds. So they're basically 1-1, and so you could flip a coin. Ultimately, I'm going to go with Gillis and Poirier here because Guinard and Fabre did lose to Fear and Gibson at an HK Trophy. And so I'm going to give the edge to Piper and Paul here, even though I think both teams were pretty close to neck and neck really all season. With frankly, Guinard and Fabre probably being a little bit stronger in the fall, Gillis and Poirier maybe being a little bit stronger in the spring. So those are the top 3 teams in the exact order of how they finished out at Worlds. In 4th place, obviously, is going to be Lyla Fear and Lewis Gibson. They were that next team all season. They did get that huge win at NHK over Grenard and Fabre, but they did not lose to anybody else all season except for those top three. Now, for 5th and 6th, you basically had two teams here. You have Lejoie and Legat, and you have Fournier-Baudry and Sorensen. And they went head-to-head twice. That was at Grand Prix Final, and that was at Worlds. Now, Marjorie had a concussion, and so they were out of Canadian Nationals, so were Fournier-Baudry and Sorensen because of the Safe Sport report. So there was no head-to-head there, and there was no head-to-head at Four Continents. So really, we have Grand Prix Final where Laurence and Nikolai finished ahead of Marjorie and Zach, but both teams made mistakes in the rhythm dance and weren't really at their best. At Worlds, you had Laurence making a big twizzle mistake in their rhythm dance and being far behind. So, had they been in the top 5, like we had sort of figured they would Marjorie and Zach still beaten them in the free dance? I think unquestionably both of Marjorie and Zach's programs are stronger than what Laurence and Nick brought to the table this season. So I'm not penalizing Laurence and Nick for the Safe Sport report when doing these end of the season rankings. I think head to head this year, they were 1-1. I'm giving them the nod to Marjorie and Zach because I feel like they had the better programs, the better execution of the programs in general, and frankly, I just think that they were the better team this year. So I have them at 5, and I have Fournier-Baudry and Sorensen at 6. Once you get to the next 3, you can sort of move them around a little bit if you wanted to, but in general, over the course of the season, Reed and Ambreux-Levicius, to me, are team number 7. They got 2 bronze medals in the Grand Prix and a bronze at Europeans, and just overall had a stronger season from start to finish than the other 2 teams. Lopareva and Bruzeau, I have at 8. They were just sort of that next team for me, right behind Reed and Ambreux-Levicius. I think they also got 2 bronze medals on the Grand Prix circuit as well, and had a very strong Worlds as well. I mean, all 3 of these teams that I have 7, 8, 9 were just like within like a point of each other at Worlds. And number 9 is Christina Carrera and Anthony Marinko. So while they finished 7th at Worlds and they finished ahead of these 2 teams, they were largely behind these 2 teams most of the fall. Fair or unfair, I felt like they were underscored in the fall, but like I said, these teams could be pretty much interchangeably. But I think if you look at the overall season and body of work, that this is exactly how you should rank them. Reed and Ambreux-Levicius 7, Lopareva and Bruzeau 8, Carrera and Marinko 9. Now, when you get to the 10th team, I think there's a few different teams that you could sort of look at here. You could look at the Taschelers here because they had, a strong season at times, but obviously were hampered by injuries, had a big mistake at Worlds, and didn't get to have the finish there that they would have wanted. Turula and Louise definitely didn't have the season that they would have wanted, but still very strong and ahead of some of these other teams. You've got Desmauget and Mercier, who really, really were on the rise towards the end of the season. And you have a great argument for them to be 10th. And you could also, make an argument for Zingas and Klasnik. So while they didn't have a strong fall, they have the 11th highest season's best score of dance teams this year based upon their performance at Four Continents, which was the strongest for them. Had they performed the way that they did at Four Continents at Nationals, they would have been on the world team. What would they have done at Worlds? Who knows? But ultimately, I landed on Turula and Lewis as that 10th team, rounding out my top 10 of the year. I feel like they were just consistently kind of ahead of those other teams that I mentioned. So that is my season's wrap up of ice dance. And again, I would always love to hear what your thoughts are as the teams that I picked and the programs that I picked, because you could go any number of different ways in ice dance for sure. I mean, like I said, there were some programs that I thought would be on the list. I should also probably give an honorable mention to Flores and Desiatov, who actually got me to like a West Side Story program, which that never happens, right? So there were so many great programs this season in ice dance, but I'm happy with my top 12. But yeah, I'm always curious what you guys was on your personal list. So as always, thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast. I'll be back with either the men's or the ladies next, probably the men's, but we'll see. And I'll complete those two coming up in the next couple of weeks to round out the season. You can find me on all the socials at Ice Skate Podcast, X, Instagram, and also on YouTube. And I'll be back soon. I hope you have a great rest of your week.